Well, hey, welcome to A Valid Answer with Scott Marshall, and we have a special guest today. Tell us your name.
My name is Jeff Ward.
Jeff Ward. I only know you as Mr. Ward because that's what my both of my boys have called you. So I don't know if I should call you Jeff or Mr. Ward or what we do on that.
You can call me Jeff.
Okay, cool. So welcome to A Valid Answer. This is where a socialist, liberal, atheist and a conservative capitalist pastor come together and talk about all the different things of the world, things that come up. Politics, religion,
you name it, economics,
everything that comes up, and two people from opposite views. What we have today, we have a very special show. We have Jeff Ward. He's a teacher at BCHS. What do you teach? I'm going to get something going on the computer here. Tell us a little bit of what you do for your school, and what do you teach your students?
Not a problem. So I am the chair of the Bible department at Bakersfield Christian High School. And I teach primarily. I teach juniors in high school. So I had one of your sons, and now I have another one. And the name of the course is Contemporary Social Issues, which is an ethics class. And so primarily first semester we really get into just a biblical Christian ethic and the principles and foundations there. And then from that we branch off into looking at different issues going on in the world, and some are still classical questions that are we're still thinking through, and then others are obviously pertinent to what's going on in the culture today. So the students seem to like it because it's a lot of debate, a lot of discussion.
Wait, teenagers like to argue?
Sometimes.
Well, and adults like to argue too, and I think part of our goal is to model a healthy way to have a difficult conversation and still be friends.
And you guys have seen us. You've seen Marshall and I really get into it before, get heated. But in the end, what you don't often see is that happens a lot of times. Like even before this show, we got into a heated discussion, and
we did.
You were just sitting there like watching, like, okay,
it's like a tennis match.
But
I enjoyed it.
And a lot of times, what you don't see is the show is over, and everybody, wow, and cool, goes and stop the recording. We're all, wow, that was a good show, huh, Marshall? We like high five each other. Okay, so next week, so it looks like we can be very, very have a lot of animosity, but there is no animosity there, and that's one of the things that we really want to get across is these things only work. This type of discussion. Problems are only going to get solved when people are able to talk openly, honestly, and humbly. Which, if you see our title of our topic today, just intellectual humility. This kind of got sparked a few weeks ago in a discussion with Marshall, and it corresponded with the beginning of the school year, and we were having the visitation days at the school and meeting the teachers and stuff like that. And we had just had a discussion to where it's happened on the side where Marshall has said some stuff, and I'm like, wow, that's I'm no longer as committed to the position I was on before because my mind has kind of been opened to a newer idea. And that kind of happened. Maybe if you want to share, Marshall, what happened a few weeks ago. We were talking about electoral college, and you posted something about it afterwards. What did you say?
Yeah, I did. Well, first, I just want to throw out there that I am the most intellectually humble person I know.
What's that song on the pop star song? I'm so humble. Yeah. I always like to do that and be like, you know what? I mean, honestly, I'm probably the most humble person you'll ever meet. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. You know.
I don't have the post in front of me. In fact, I'm having issues loading the show. It is broadcasting on the phone.
I see it both on my devices.
But the iPad, I don't know. It's just a mess. But
Apple
anyway,
products, you know.
We had the show on the Electoral College, and Scott pitched an argument at me that I had not really heard before. And even before the show, I was talking to him in kind of our pre-show workup.
Yep.
I'm like, "Oh no, you can't stump me. You can't throw anything at
I
me."
got something I don't think you've ever heard before. Yeah, no, I've heard it.
I wasn't being very humble in the pre-show, but then when the show got rolling, he said something, and it kind of was like, I have not heard that before, and I didn't want to acknowledge it. I didn't want to think about it, but I'm like, man, I have to. Oh man, it's like having to do homework. And so I think we kind of wrapped up the show, and I was kind of like, well, Scott, I kind of see your point of view. And then I thought about it after the show was over, because you do need time to think and process.
Yeah.
Nobody is going to change their mind because you confront them with, a compelling argument right like that. Nobody's going to change their mind on the spot, because you literally have to kind of rewire your brain
I
cells.
probably will, because I'm so humble, but go
Well,
ahead.
there you go. But then eventually I changed my mind and I made a post, because I felt it was very important to acknowledge that, hey, win one for Scott, and to model for the rest of you that it's okay to change your mind, and that you should acknowledge when your opinion on a subject has been changed. It's okay to be persuaded. A lot of people think that if I change my mind, I'm going to look like I was dumb or weak or something. And no,
I think more that they think they're going to look weak. They're going to lose their position.
But the weak position is actually the inflexible one.
Yeah.
It's like the whole tree bending in the wind, right? If the wind blows and the tree's inflexible, it snaps and it dies.
Yeah, you have hurricanes that blow through all these islands, and in the end, that palm tree is still standing there because it just goes.
It sways.
Yep.
It adapts. So I want people to know it's okay to change your mind. It's hard to change a core belief.
Yeah.
And we've talked about core beliefs. And when somebody goes directly at your core belief, you put the wall up.
Yeah.
Which is why there's sort of a right and a wrong way to persuade a person. And the wrong way is, you're wrong, the Bible says this, The right
The
way
spaghetti,
is,
flying spaghetti monsters.
right?
Yeah.
The right way is, hey, Marsh, my family's cooking ribs, come over. And we might,
Been there, done that.
or hey, Scott, we're playing a game, come on over, let's
Yep.
play. And that's how
Railroad tycoon.
Yeah, right. You persuade a person. You interact on a personal level. You work on being friends so that the barriers then aren't there. And then only after maybe even years of that type of friendly, kind interaction, a person will open up to, hey, Scott, I noticed you were really nice to those people. I wouldn't have been. Why were you so nice?
Yeah.
Well, it's my Christianity, and I have this ethic that, we should treat all people this way, and that's why I acted the way I did. And then I go home and think about it, and maybe I change my mind. Hey,
Comes
Scott,
back, the baptism is ready for you.
He told me the baptismal font
Always
was
full.
Always full.
Always full. Yeah.
So there you
So
go.
this happened right around the same time when the school year was starting, and we went and visited the classes. And my son had said, "Oh yeah, the Bible class is a contemporary Christian, contemporary Christian issues, or it's contemporary social issues." I'm like, "Okay, I don't really know what that means, but are you enjoying it?" Yeah, that didn't tell me much. Then we go and visit the class, and I meet you, Jeff Ward, and it's like, oh, this is like so what we do on our podcast. And like I wanted to share with you, hey, this just happened. It'd be great for the students to kind of see the idea of someone who's being intellectually honest and someone who, and so I kind of came to you about that. What are you hoping maybe if your students see this and see the show, or not just your students, but people in general, what are you hoping that somebody would get out of this?
I think, after hearing what you guys have shared, I agree with both of you guys. I think for me, the most important thing about all of this is what you're talking about. That's the relational aspect of this, is that, as we were talking about pre-show, you're talking about not just issues, not just policies and these types of things. You're talking about people. We're talking about things that affect people. And so the best way to get these ideas out there and to persuade somebody is to love people. And we were talking about that ethic, is really humanizing people and giving them dignity and respect. And I love what you said about, hey, come on over to the house, let's break bread together. That's really where you're going to bring down barriers where people can actually listen and people are actually hearing. And it's not so much about, I like listening to you guys go back and forth, but a lot of it too is about listening and really listening to another person's thoughts, their reasons, their ideas. And whenever you love people, when you care about people, that's really what you're doing in this. And so what I would love for my students, if they get to see this, is that here you have two people who are on opposite ends of the spectrum in terms of their core beliefs, but yet they can sit here and love each other and talk about things that they're passionate about, things they care about, and things that they actually want to persuade the other person to believe in, and to know that you can actually still want to persuade somebody and want them to agree with you, but yet you're not going to dehumanize them, you're not going to put them down. And I think that is true. That's what needs to be modeled out in the world. And I think it's definitely something for myself as a Christian. These are things that we see that Christ demonstrated all the time. And really, that's really what's going to change, anybody's mind. And I think on the listening side of that as well is when you engage in the conversation, which I appreciated about your comment, is are you open to be persuaded?
What does that take?
I think what that takes is humility and treating people as you would want to be treated. And so if you think that you're going to come in and you want to get hey, I got you here, I want to just win the argument, then the point is you're not going to be persuaded. All you're coming to do is to win an argument.
And you're not going to persuade either because I'm not going to
usually.
be open to it.
That's
have
right.
to say.
That's right.
Because you're coming here with the knives out. You know, you're in the gladiatorial uniform
Yeah.
or whatever you
As
call it.
when you look at our picture, us with the boxing gloves, ready to go. Yeah.
You know, I don't want to have a conversation with the guy with boxing gloves on and,
Exactly.
you know.
Yeah. And I think that's the key there is we're wanting to have a conversation.
Yeah.
And a conversation can be a debate, but you can have a conversation that debates, that discusses, that goes back and forth. So I think understanding that I don't know everything.
Hey, there's a good place to start. In
yeah.
fact, you may not even know the origin of the name of our podcast, Marshall.
Oh, yeah.
Because our podcast is a valid answer. Yep.
Right. You know, and I think even I kind of have a hard time remembering, but we talked about what we're going to call this. And we talked about giving of, is this a valid answer or not? You know, we would ask a question and we would try to answer. And is the answer a fallacy? Mm-hmm. Am I copping out? Am I dodging the question? Or is that a valid answer?
And then also sometimes you just don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And
yes.
Yeah, and that was the thing that we would say. You know what? I don't know is still a valid answer.
Yes, it is. It's okay to
It's
say,
okay
I
to
don't
say,
know.
you know what? I don't know about that one. Let me research that some more and get back. I don't have to make up an answer to win the argument right now. I don't have to. I don't have to resort to rhetoric or just do whatever linguistic legerdemain to try to twist myself out of there to not be caught in the corner of not knowing. You know what? I don't know is a valid answer. It's okay to not know. Go and find out, and then we'll talk about it next time.
Yeah, haven't we all had that uncle or that teacher in the past who knew the answer to everything, and then later you found out, wow, that was really wrong?
By the way, Josh Gunderson says he loves your shirt. So Josh Gunderson also, maybe person you might remember because, by the way, Jeff Ward here went to Foothill with us. We didn't even know that. Just a couple of years behind us. So Josh went to Foothill.
So.
Yeah, he was a freshman.
was
We were
freshman.
seniors. We weren't paying attention to him
yeah.
back then. But yeah, I'm assuming, Josh, you're talking about his shirt, Rip Curl. So yeah, awesome shirt.
Let's see if there are some other comments.
Well, you know what? Actually, way up earlier, Michael actually posted it. And he says, "Isn't saying there's a right way isn't saying there's a right way actually an inflexible position itself?" And it's like, I mean, there is a point to that, but at the same time, as a person who's a conservative who believes in right and wrong, I do believe there are right and wrong ways to do something. Mm-hmm. And the as a human being, you should strive to find what that right way is and then change your way to match the right way. I used to get into this discussion all the time with people who'd be like, Scott, your way isn't always the right way. And I'm like, I'm not trying to say my way is the right way. I'm trying to say, especially when it came to technical terms, a lot of times I was having technical arguments with people about, how is this supposed to look on camera? And it's like, you know what I mean? But
there's objective standards.
There are objective standards. And it's like, well, just because it's your way doesn't mean it's the right way. I'm like, well, no, I went out and found out what was the right way to do this. And then I adjusted my life and how I do it to match what the right way to do it is. And so I do believe, and it's an interesting question that you post on there, Michael, but yeah, I do believe there is a right way. I believe us saying there's a right way to have discussions is in itself, I agree, an inflexible position. But as a person who believes in absolute right and wrong, I believe that there are positions that are inflexible. I believe that there are things that are absolutely right and absolutely wrong. And I think that, I think this is the right way to have that discussion. If we're brave enough to say that, I think there's a right way to have this discussion. Now, there might be times we say, no, just punch a Nazi. You and I have gotten into that.
We have.
We've gotten into that before to where it's like, no, you don't have a discussion with certain people. You just hit them. And I'm like, I don't know that I can go there. It's
don't
attacking,
you like Indiana Jones?
physically attacking somebody without physical provocation, I think is always wrong.
But what if their inherent position is rooted in your oppression? What if What if everything they stand for, what if the speech that they are expressing is literally rooted in your oppression, in your dehumanization? And if you give this person a forum, if you give them the time of day, if you don't at least unplug the mic, then they're going to get some kind of
But if their
traction or
position is so
credibility.
bad, don't you have the courage to say that, but their position is so bad, we can show how bad it is by letting them just be bad in front of people, and then we can
Well, to a degree, right?
Yeah.
Your rights end
let
when
them
my rights begin.
let them
You
let
know?
them dig their own grave.
And
Give them
fighting
enough
words
give them
are
enough
also a
rope to hang
thing.
themselves.
Fighting words are a thing. But generally speaking, yes, I believe that if a person wants to make a jerk of themselves, go ahead, do that, and everybody will see that you're a jerk, and everybody will respond to you with that notion in mind. But there are certain limits. You know, if a person gets in your face, for example, and creates a hostile situation, then I think you do have some leeway there.
I love that because Michael comes back to you and says, "So rich people shouldn't give socialists a platform."
Well, and guess what? They don't. They don't in the status quo. Socialists have to try to sneak it and carve it out on their own, I feel. Yeah, you know, and I think that's a great point that Michael raises.
Yeah.
You know, because us socialists are out there communicating. Obviously, I'm on Facebook, which is a platform provided by a very rich person. And yeah, I'd like to eat him, you know. So, because I want to eat all the rich. You know, I don't think anyone should be a billionaire.
That's for a different discussion at
You
another
know,
time.
Yeah, you know, because I think to be a billionaire, it's rooted in the exploitation of others. You can't become a billionaire unless you engage in some level of exploitation. I would like to correct that, you know, but that's just me. But I don't think that when you are, you know, to me, a Nazi, for example, is saying that you are born this way and therefore you're inferior. Whereas as a socialist, I'm saying you've made choices to exploit others, and that needs to be rectified. There's a difference in the message that a Nazi versus a socialist, and we've talked about socialists being a little distinct from Nazi, that it's its own kind of thing. Socialists are not, fascists, I should say, are distinct from capitalists and communists. They are kind of the third axis on this triangle, if you will. I just want to be clear about what I'm saying here.
Now we're getting in the weeds.
Yeah, we are getting into the weeds. But anyway, there's definitely a difference between the message that a Nazi has and the message that a socialist has. They should not be confused, and there's a reason why I'm much less tolerant of one than of the other. I'm even tolerant of what capitalists have to say. You know, Michael, for example, is really into John Locke and sort of the night watchman state, as I understand it to be, which is this idea that the only purpose of the state should be to prevent exploitation. But of course, I don't see that happening, and I see a lot of exploitation. And when you look at the quintessential night watchman state, which is England in the 19th century, if you will, there was tons of exploitation happening. So anyway, But we get into the weeds. So let's.
Well, just kind of coming back to this discussion again. We were having this discussion. It was a few weeks ago when we first talked about, hey, let's all get together. It was actually like a month and a half ago when we first started talking about this. And right around that same time, something happened in the news that again I felt like, see, this is like. It was like, yeah, this is in the news right now, and it's relevant right now in that Alyssa Milano ended up having a sit down with Ted Cruz, and of course, Ted Cruz is a conservative. Is he still a senator, right? Not a former senator. He's still senator. I'm starting to get confused because people retire and that. But Ted Cruz
can also still call him that, even if he's retired.
Oh, gotcha. All right. So he's a senator, sitting senator from Texas on the conservative side, and Alyssa Milano is a Hollywood liberal. And something happened in the Twitter sphere. She said something about it, and he responded by saying, "Well, why don't you sit down with me and let's talk about it?" They're talking about guns and stuff like that, and NRA and whatever it was. And he said, "Well, let's sit down and talk about it." And to her credit, I hate to give credit to a Hollywood liberal, but to her credit, she said, "Okay." And they actually met and they sat down for a couple hours, whatever it was. And coming out of the meeting, she told reporters coming out of the meeting, she said, "Hey, we disagree fundamentally on all these things, but I realize now that he's a human being and he does care about the issues." And I'm like, yes, that's what we're talking about right there. But it's just so sad to think that she went into that thinking literally that he wasn't a human being and didn't care. Like that was her position going into that was like, well, this person just doesn't care. He's just an evil person who doesn't just wants to see kids killed with guns so that he can make money, and like literally believing that that's how evil this person has to be. And then coming out of this saying, oh, wow, I guess he really is a human being. It's like, yeah, we're all human beings. We are all human beings. That the person on the opposite, it's so easy to get on the keyboard and fight against that person on the other side of the keyboard and say, well, that person's just evil. That person's just dumb. That person's just stupid. But then when you sit down at a table and play games and have your family come over and play games, or come over and, barbecue ribs for them, and you sit down, I can't look at you. I can't look at you, Jeff. I can't look at you, Marshall, and say, well, you're dumb. Well, you're evil. You're just stupid because you believe this. I look at you and say, I know you. I know you. I spent time with you. I've come to become your friend. We just disagree on how it should be done. But if we all just realize that everybody on the opposite side of that screen, on the opposite side of that keyboard, whatever that other person believes over there, they are still a human being. That you got to approach it with the idea of they're a human being who wants the best solution. You guys just disagree on what the solution is. That person really is not trying to, that person's not trying to destroy America. They have a different view of what America is, and they're trying to make the best America in their view.
Right, exactly.
But if you just look and say, well, they're just trying to destroy America, therefore they're evil, and they just want to, then there is no common ground. You can't meet in the middle. You can't even have a discussion. And that's what this is about. And that's what I'm hoping. That's what I was so encouraged seeing what you do with the students, and both my boys have been in your class, and be like, yes, this is exactly. I got excited. It's like that's what I see you're trying to teach the students.
Yeah, and I think for me as a teacher, one of the things I'm trying to model for them at the same time is that, hey, I don't have all the answers, and even though you see me as your teacher, and there's an amount of respect that comes with that, is, hey, we need to be willing to investigate all sides of an issue, all sides of an idea. And what's so great about something like this, or even in the things that I'm hearing, is, I've heard different stories over the years of when people are trying to come down to a conclusion on what they think about a certain subject or a certain topic. And the times when I've realized that I've heard about, and even in my own personal experiences, when I've seen my own beliefs shift or change, even theologically over time, a lot of that has come about because people actually go out and spend time with people who believe differently than they do. And that's such a huge part of it, because you can kind of get in this mindset, I'm going to read every book and every article, and I'm really going to try to get everything I can and try to make your decision in the confines of your academic work. But man, it really does make a difference when you take that out and you actually put flesh onto that, and you're actually engaging with other people who disagree. And on one side of that, it opens them up to say, wow, you know what? I met this guy, and he seems to be a totally other side than I am on these things. But man, after that conversation, I'm gonna have to go back and I'm gonna think about this a little bit more. And I think that's really what you're after at some level, but man, it comes back to that relational aspect that I'm always wanting to model for these students. And so in the class, I want it to be a place where the students feel safe to be able to dissent or to agree, and not feel that they're going to be bombarded by somebody else in the room. And so that's why I make it a big deal to say, hey, look, this is a safe place. There's no idea that's off the table. Bring those things out so that we can actually think about them. And like you had said earlier, this happens to me all the time in my own personal life. I'll hear an argument that I've never heard before.
Yeah.
And I'm there as a teacher, and I want my students to realize I'm learning every day from my students, because I don't think I've got every argument nailed down. And sometimes a student will say something, and I'll try to model in class and say, you know what? I never thought of it like that before. You know, and going back and being able to say, you know, I'm going to think about that, and we'll come back to that as a class. You know, but man, the gotcha mentality right now is really what's kind of dividing the culture right now, and that's the sad thing to me. Is you're putting somebody immediately into a box, which means I'm not going to talk to you because you're in that box or on that team. You know. Well,
he and I have actually gotten into this because you've backed off from this a little bit. What you were saying of putting people in the box and all that is what is it? The memes. I always have a really big problem with memes because they're just usually rhetoric, straw man arguments, gotcha catchphrases, stuff like that. And for a while you were
funny.
You were there, but they're funny, right? And you would be posting memes and I'm just like, every time you post a meme, you kill your own credibility. And I was just like, I'll be on the backside texting, for your sake, Marshall, stop posting these memes.
I still want the memes. I still want to see the memes.
Now, that being said, I have posted one or two.
Yeah.
And but because again, they are funny, but at the same time, the more you use them in an argument, I think the more credibility you lose.
So my question would be on that is, how much do you think our social media driven world has affected being able to have these conversations in the flesh with people? Because a lot of that, I think when you say that, it's easy to put a meme out there. It's easy to have kind of your silo or the people that you have, or it's easier just to dehumanize people online.
Yeah,
when you're actually talking to people in person. So I'm wondering what your thoughts are on the social media.
Surprisingly, social media is such an effective tool that could be used to bring so many people to the table like we're doing right now to have these discussions, but its power is misused because you're surrounding yourself by friends, so you end up in an echo chamber. If you don't invite friends, friends outside of your own beliefs into your circle, and that's hard because if you're not making friends outside of your own beliefs, it's difficult. Then you get surrounded, you get in this echo chamber of everything you say, they're all saying, and then you're like, yeah, that's right, and you're all agreeing, and you're preaching to the choir, and you're all, this is what everybody believes, and you forget that there's a whole half of the country that doesn't believe like you do. I mean, literally,
and
there's a whole half of the country.
A felony for Donald Trump. And the other half of the country is like, what?
Yeah, but again, it comes down to people talking. They're talking about again, I'm conservative gun rights and stuff like that, where people talk about how it's the NRA, it's just against it. If it wasn't for them, there wouldn't be. It's like no, half the country believes in keeping their guns. There's half the country believes the opposite of you.
Real socialists believe in keeping the guns.
Well, that's a different discussion. For different reasons and a different discussion. But again, I believe that with social media, there is such an opportunity to be able to open up discussions like this and have these open discussions. But I think it's just so easy to throw that meme out there. It's so easy to get caught up in that echo chamber and everybody around you agreeing. Reach outside. Right? Find some people that are outside of your circle and include them in your circle. Start here. This is something.
I have a caveat to that.
Right, exactly. But like this is something that started with me years ago, before social media, back on like internet forums, right? Where I was involved in. I was on a Star Wars website, of course, filmmaking website, and they had forums, and there was all these things where we talked about how filmmaking and prop making and all that. But then there was one little spot in there for political discussions. And then I would go in there and it was the really first time that I was kind of exposed to all, because most of them are liberal Hollywood type people that they're all artists. They're all, and there's a tendency for them to lean more towards the left. So I would be like the only conservative on this forum.
You thought you were the rebel. Turns out you were the Star Trooper.
Yeah, exactly.
Stormtrooper.
Yeah, Stormtrooper. But wow, oh my gosh.
You must be the Star Trek.
Yeah, he's the Star Trek guy.
Star Trek guy.
But it was really kind of the first time where I started seeing all of this thought that didn't agree with me and really learned from it and really was like, okay, so, and I started realizing, honestly, how dumb Christians look to the rest of the world a lot.
I want to throw a caveat out there. It's important, I think, to have people with contrary views to yours in your social media feed. However, you want to make sure it's the right kind of people. It should be people who bring value. It shouldn't be people who simply disagree with everything you post for the sake of disagreeing. And this is something
So wait, I'm supposed to unfriend you now?
Right? Because I have friends who will post memes. They're anti-socialist memes. My brother is a prime offender. I've got a few friends. I could name off 3 or 4 names, and I'm not going to.
You know who you are.
You know who you are. But you'll also find that I'll come back at you, and because I'm trying to educate.
Yes.
And I find some of the memes absolutely laughably embarrassing, because what the person is opposed to is really a caricature of socialism.
Yep.
They do not understand that socialism isn't taking from people who work hard and giving people who don't work free stuff. That's capitalism, actually. But they think that's what socialism is, and it's not. It's a worker-based society where you literally are required to work.
You have to understand that no matter what discussion we get into, it always comes back to socialism.
But so make sure that the people who are from the other side of you aren't just they're not posting memes on top of your memes to retaliate in kind,
right? Yeah,
but that they're actually trying to offer some kind of substance.
Invite them in. If it turns out they're trolls, kick them back out.
Yeah.
No trolls allowed.
So when a person offers substance, try to keep those. Those are the keepers, even if they disagree with you. Yeah. Those are the keepers.
Oh no, I agree, and it reminds me of, I think it was Anselm who talked about in our
Saint
our faith.
Anselm. You might want to tell him.
For us, we have a faith that seeks understanding, and so whenever we are trying to get to the truth, what we're saying as Christians is, I don't think when you look at Scripture, we're talking about something that's a blind faith. You're talking about a confidence in, a faith that seeks understanding, and so therefore you're wanting to hear from people and learn from people, and the best way to learn is to encounter opposing ideas and then to be able to evaluate those ideas. And I think that's why we talked about in pre-show about the whole point of like a true liberal education is something like that, is where you are evaluating the best ideas, being exposed to the best ideas, not just being indoctrinated. And I think people throw that term indoctrination around so loosely, as if you're just on one side or the other, then you're being indoctrinated, where you can't have a position or even a bias, but still have a rational objectivity to be able to say, I'm going to use logic as a tool to understand these things. And some people, they would say, you really, sometimes you can have a psychological objectivity where maybe if you haven't heard an idea before, an argument, so you really are saying, wow, I don't know for sure, I've got to think about this. But most people do have a bias, but that's why we go to that rational objectivity. Can I now take reason, the tool of reason, and try to come to a conclusion about these things? And we would all agree, just the fact that I think about the person who asked that question about, right and wrong, isn't that inflexible? I mean, the fact that we're asking questions means we assume there's truth out there. And if we want to know the truth, then we're going to keep wanting to dig into these issues, go deeper, learn more, listen from others, which I think is just a virtue for all of us to really want to develop.
But the other thing that happens too in these discussions that is a great benefit. I don't even want to say it's a side benefit. It's a great benefit. Is that even in the Bible it says iron sharpens iron. Yes. I became better at knowing what I believed when I saw what other people were saying about what I believed. And I question, I'm like, well, why do they think that's what I believe? What am I doing that's putting out that kind of thought? Okay, so this is what I got to, but also it made me rethink by knowing, you got to understand, I'm going to use this word. I don't mean it like that, but you have to understand the enemy in order to, to be victorious. You got to know how you look to the person who doesn't believe the same as you. And then you realize that opens your eyes to, oh, am I being that kind of person? Am I doing that? Am I being part of presenting that falsehood to them? And what do I have to do to change how I talk and how I behave to make sure that I'm putting out that I'm representing what I believe well. And so that ended up making me a better believer by having to look at what other people were saying that didn't believe what I believe, to hear their arguments. It didn't necessarily change my opinion, but it made me better at believing what I believe, not in a staunch, like, well, just because you disagree now but in more of a, I'm having understanding now, and I'm growing and becoming a better, it's playing chess. You got to keep playing to get better. And if you're going to get stuck, if you don't engage with people who don't believe what you believe, you're going to find yourself as a very weak believer, that not even understanding what it is that you truly believe. And that's what I love about your class, is that you're introducing that idea to these young teenagers at such an early age of not just question what you believe just to question it, but question what you believe so that you then get answers and have a better belief.
Yeah, because I think any of us would say this whenever, I mean, even just sitting here right now with you guys, I'm nervous, right? And you come to something like this. And so what's inside of you all the time is, am I going to say something stupid? Are they going to come up? I don't know what to think about that. So we all have our fears when it comes to wanting to express our ideas or defend our ideas and these types of things. But there's two things there. One, you're going to have a courage to be able to want to hear the other side, that you're going to have to overcome. And that's important to instill in people, to have courage to hear what the other side says. I think that's what holds people back, is they're not just afraid that they won't be able to defend it, but sometimes they think they're afraid of if they had to change their core beliefs, change their whole worldview. And it's a terrifying thing. I mean, I know you guys have in your lives have had those moments. I remember having a crisis of faith and going this direction, but it was scary.
Well, you've said this before. You don't want, as an atheist, you don't want to make somebody lose their faith. You've lived that.
Terrifying, destabilizing, life-destroying transition.
For people who don't know your story, maybe just share just 2 minutes of.
Well, I mean, it's probably too much to go into.
Yeah,
but all I want to say is, it wasn't fun. It wasn't pleasant.
You didn't grow up an atheist.
No, I grew up as a Catholic.
Yep.
As a Christian, and I was very devout for some time. And over a period of trials and tribulations, I essentially lost my faith. And today I can look back at that and say, the reason I kind of lost my way from Christianity was because I was looking at the problems, the challenges that I was going through from the wrong perspective. If I had a wise Christian perspective, which I lacked entirely at the time, those things might have actually strengthened my faith, but I lacked the wisdom when I was young. And as a consequence, I lost my faith, and I lost friends and loved ones and family members. And for a while, I mean, heck, I was an anti-theist. That transition was one of the most difficult things I've ever been through in my life. It wasn't fun. It wasn't cute. I'm not an atheist because I want to be an atheist. I'm an atheist because I have a logical hang-up with, Christianity and every other religion that's out there.
And technically, you like to say you're agnostic towards.
Yes, I'm agnostic on the question of God, but I'm an atheist in your religion, in every religion, because no religion can make the logical chain from God may exist to this specific church on this street corner is the one true church. There's always some special pleading or some logical fallacy somewhere in that chain.
And Josh on here is saying he's with you. It's the same thing. It was a jagged transition.
Yeah. But I'm a reluctant atheist. I would not like to be an atheist. I would love to have this confidence I'm saved. I know what happens when I die. I know where my loved ones go. I would love to have that feeling, that warmth, that security. But I also have to be intellectually honest. And then that puts me in this place where I'm at. I don't like it, but this is where I am.
You remind me of something that my former department head would say as we would gather together. And he's, I worked with some great people. I still do. But one of the things that we would talk about in our department meetings is, obviously we work at a Christian high school. But if a student was, they weren't a Christian or they were wanting to walk away from their faith, it wasn't something that we were, we're so scared, we're losing, kids. But one of the things that he would often say is, I'm paraphrasing here, but he'd say, look, at what we want to do as their teacher is we want to be able to say, look, if you're going to be an atheist, then we want you to be the best atheist out there. We want you to understand the arguments, the ideas. We want you to know what it is that you understand to be true and what you're arguing for. But I agree with you, and that's why I brought it up, because at one level people are afraid of that, but then on the other level, you also need to have what you guys have, and that is you don't have any fear of losing the friendship, no matter how hostile the debate can get. And I think that helps people too. So it's like you said, not people that are going to bring value to that, people that are going to let you wrestle with them, and be able to share and to talk. And that's why those are some of the things I try to do. I try to be that devil's advocate in my class. I want the students to wrestle back with me. I want to push them, and I want them to push back. Because at least in that area, even though it's a protected environment in that sense,
Yeah.
they're getting more there about how to deal with these types of questions and think like this than if they just go out and, it's like, sending Boy Scouts to Iraq or something. It's not going to go well,
Yeah.
So it's kind of a protected, unsheltering environment that we want to create for them as well. So,
and it's really cool. Just as a Christian, there's a like a saying, like your testimony is the best witness to anybody. And again, it comes back down to that personal relationship that I know that I'm here for Marshall. He knows that I'm his friend. He knows that I love him and that I care for him. I'll be there for him. But also at the same time, I'm also the testimony. I'm the person who stands here. And when we first connected back again on Facebook, was it 6 years ago, 7 years ago, I was right in the middle of changing jobs. I was right in the and literally I said, and I go, this is my testimony. I go, this is what I'm doing. God has spoken to me, and I'm telling my atheist friend, God has spoken to me. I'm walking away from my job. Doesn't make any sense. You literally are like, that is really dumb. Why are you doing that? Yeah. And I said, but watch how it ends. Watch how it ends. My life is going to be a testimony to you. My life, and that is when you are friends with the people that are in opposite opinions of you. That testimony ends up being the most powerful thing that you have. That yes, I know that intellectually your mind can't get past these certain hurdles, but at the same time, I know that your heart is receiving the love and is receiving what I believe God is giving you through me. And I know I'm supposed to be the Christian in your life. I'm supposed to be the testimony that's not going to go away, that you're going to keep on hearing. And that's what we're supposed to be as Christians. Our life, our testimony is supposed to be the biggest thing about us, not our arguing, not our getting the Bible and hitting somebody over the head. I mean, God can make anything work. I mean, my dad found Jesus because his brother came with the Bible, threw it at him and said, you're going to hell. And my dad chased him out in the car, grabbed the Bible and just said, they're just tricking him. I'm going to read through this and show him where he's wrong, and then found Jesus. Yeah. But I mean, anything can happen with God, but that's really not the technique that God has called us to do.
Well, don't cut off your atheist friends. I think that's horrible to do that. That if there is anything that made me anti-theist, it was this pattern of my Christian friends alienating me and being cut off. I also don't think you should engage them in debate necessarily. I don't know that that's necessarily healthy either.
At least not at the beginning.
Yeah, certainly not at the beginning. They have to go through a long maturation process to be able to sit down and have an intellectually honest, non-hostile discussion with a Christian about the whole Christian.
Well, and that comes back to being having intellectual humility.
Yes.
That you're not trying to win the argument; you're just trying to love them.
Yes, and that's I really think there's no more persuasive argument for Christianity than for the friends who stick around and the ones who love you and continue to show you love every day. There's nothing that draws me closer to Christianity more than the love I still receive from my Christian friends. Yeah. And that's crazy powerful stuff.
Yeah, there's a guy talking about that as a guy I'm reading, dealing with just the LGBT. LGBT. He wrote a book, People to Be Loved.
Yes.
And one of the big takeaways I took from this is that he talks about how you have people who have walked away from the church in that community, and when they were surveyed, the biggest thing that I took away from that just really shocked me is. They didn't leave the church because of the church's theology. They left the church, he said, because of the church's posture. And that really hit me because it's really about the posture. We're proclaiming truth and compassion there, but for them to say, hey, it's really the posture. And then when they actually surveyed them as well and said, what would it take to bring you to come back to the church? I think it was a very small percentage, 3% or so, said that the church would have to change their stance on certain things. But that was small. Overwhelming, a lot of them said, are you going to walk with me? Are you going to help let me struggle? Are you going to help me think this through? And I remember, looking back on that thinking, wow, that is so true that oftentimes, and I read a book, you remind me of another title of a book years ago I read called Love, the Ultimate Apologetic. And that really, apologetics, defending your faith, really the ultimate apologetic, the ultimate defense of Christianity is the love that we have for others, that we demonstrate to others. And so I think that's That's got to be the core of what it is that we're doing when we're having these conversations. And it's really about, do you love the person? And let the conversations come up as they may.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not having a relationship with somebody who's a non-believer because I just want to win them. I want to have a relationship with them because I want to love them. I want to get to know them. And it's not just about trying to win somebody for the Lord, because then that kind of seems you know, a little artificial there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I think people who aren't believers, just like anybody else, they can sense when somebody's artificial.
We
You
can
know,
tell.
right off the bat.
Yeah.
Well, this has been a great discussion, Jeff. Thank you for joining us, or
thanks for
Mr.
having
Ward,
me.
if your students
Yeah.
are watching this. Thank
Yeah,
you for
thanks
joining
having
us.
me. It's great meeting you
This
guys.
has been great, and this is why we do what we do. The intellectual honesty, intellectual humility, learning to discuss and see the humanity in the person who doesn't agree with you, and man, just if more people could do this, so much more could be solved in our world. So thank you for joining us. This has been A Valid Answer. You can catch us here at kerncast.com, Kerncast on Facebook, or Valid Answer on Facebook, Sunday nights at 5. And sometimes you'll be at the beach. Sometimes I'll be here. Sometimes we'll have a guest. Thank you again for joining us. But until next time, I'm Scott.
And I'm Marshall.
I'm Jeff.
All right. See you guys
Thank you.
later.
Thanks.